Hey the berries, hope you're doing well. Welcome to my season 13 patch 13.1b tier list for supports. So sorry if you hear, by the way, I've got a sore throat sweet in my mouth because I'm not feeling too great. So it's going to help me talk during this, and I wanted to get this video out in time for the patch for you guys. But for this one, there isn't technically going to be a patch. It's going to be hot fixed in. So that means with this patch, there's going to be no new skins or anything like that, and it's just going to happen kind of like almost seamlessly, particularly if you're more used to doing like TFT and those midweek patches that they do. It will just be like added in. So that's going to come in on Thursday. So that's Thursday the 26th of January. We don't know exactly what time it's going to be. I'm sure they'll do like some sort of Twitter announcement when it goes live. But I'm expecting it to be like very, very early in the morning for each region. So usually they do this patch around about like 5 o'clock in the morning, like UK time. I'm assuming something similar over to NA, and I'm assuming they're going to hotfix each server one by one in the middle of the night. So that's when it's going to be coming through. I moved a few champions on this list. A lot of them are reactionary to nerfs and buffs. But we'll go through in depth on some of the changes. The biggest one being the Yuumi. Yuumi in the start of the season, I put her in tier 4. She was actually doing like okay in like mega high elo. So Riot's nerfed her again because they really don't want to see her in pro play. So they basically killed her. So you basically do not want to play Yuumi. So if I find Yuumi, they've nerfed her auto attack range, her auto attack damage. Her health has gone down. Her health regeneration's gone down. They've nerfed her passive. They've nerfed the adaptive force you get from the W by quite a dramatic amount, and also they've removed the movement speed scaling. She's basically useless now. I mean, she's not useless. You could, if you ordered food and you forgot about it, and then like you hear your doorbell go and you don't want to dodge and you want to eat the food, you could probably pay Yuumi. But that's like the only like way Yuumi would be more beneficial than playing anything else, honestly. So yeah, Yumi's kind of dead, at least until they figure out what they want to do with her. So that was the only champion that's been moved down to tier 5. Tier 4, I've moved down Morgana. Her win rates are not doing too great. I did have her in tier 3, but she's not doing too hot. I think if you just want to play a binding champion, Lox is the one that you're going to want to play, and Lox is higher up. Nothing else got moved into tier 4, and I don't really feel like there's anything else to talk about in tier 4, so we'll move up to tier 3. We did take a champion out of tier 4, and that was Senna. So this one's going to be quite difficult to explain, particularly if you play support only. So crit is getting changed in the hotfix in terms of items. Certain items don't need as much crit to get the benefit. So be able to use the item. So for example, Infinity Edge, you need a 60% crit in order to be able to use the item properly. Now, also Senna received, and a lot of AD carriers received like some mana regeneration buffs and stuff like that. That also affects like Ashe support as well. If I go to Ashe, her mana growth went up and her mana regeneration went up. So that means more volley spams. Which means if you really wanted to, you could maybe, because his mana growth is quite a lot here, you could maybe like not go mana immune. Sorry that we're still talking about Ashe, but I think Ashe is now slightly stronger, and it would be kind of curious to try it out. Instead of going like mana immune, Black Cleaver got buffed. Plus 5 attack damage and plus health, but it also would make it be able to deal tankier targets. And also like Senna can also buy Black Cleaver as well. So it could be an interesting option into potentially looking at a Black Cleaver Ashe build. But anyway, back to Senna. So crit got changed. So if I go to Infinity Edge, so for example, Infinity Edge and Quick Blades, to get the extra crit damage, you still need 60% crit. Now you only need 40. So for Senna, that's pretty easy to get, because you can get it quite easy naturally in your kit. But also Infinity Edge will have 20% crit on anyway. So I am wondering if there is a possibility where you could rush Infinity Edge on Senna. I know that sounds nuts, but I wonder in a realm, I want to try it. I.e. second item, well, first item on her, obviously you have to get boots first. Yeah, have your gold generating item, but then Infinity Edge. Could be something though that we could work with. So yeah, I think, and also Senna received, if I go back to Senna, I don't think I showed it. She also received mana regeneration growth, which means that she's going to go out of mana a little bit less, which means you can probably do 1 or 2 more Qs in lane, which equals more healing, more damage. Being able to pick up a couple of extra souls in lane with your Q without having to worry about going out of mana. It's quite a nice change for support Senna. It's quite a big mana regeneration. It's nearly double as well, so you should be able to feed it pretty much after leveling up a few times. Going back to the tier list, is anything else there? It's tier 3. So we did move Maokai down from tier 2 to tier 3. Sorry all the jumping here, but these notes are so big that this is probably the most efficient way of doing this. So Maokai got nerfed. He hit a Q jungle nerf. He needed nerfing because he was quite strong in the jungle in particular. Also Demonic Embrace got nerfed slightly for melee targets. I'll go into that more a little bit later on. But it got buffed to range targets. So Zyra and Brand technically got buffed this patch for any ranged users that use Demonic Embrace. Sapling Toss is getting nerfed. Quite a lot of damage being removed off Sapling Toss. So just generally weaker in the lane. AP kind of Maokai, if you were doing that as support, is taking a decent hit. Tank Maokai should still be fine, but you will notice the damage going down, particularly if you're utilizing the brush to do most of your plays. So Maokai moved down slightly into tier 3. Heimerdinger also all these like kind of off meta supports. Heimerdinger got nerfed, moved down from tier 2 to tier 3. His turrets taking a massive health nerf early on, 175 to 130. That's like the biggest thing here. They did increase the damage of his turrets, but the turrets being more squishy makes him much more vulnerable in the bot lane. Also, they've nerfed his W on the base scaling, but gave it a higher AP ratio, basically to say, get the Heimerdingers out of bot lane. He needs solo lane XP and gold to be able to get the higher AP values in order to do more rocket damage. So Heimerdinger will actually probably do a little bit better in the solo lanes with the solo gold. But as support, his skill's falling off, and this health on the turrets will just make it so that you won't have to play Jhin support to just counter a Heimerdinger, which I wouldn't recommend anyway. I didn't put Jhin on this tier list. I don't think Jhin support should be played, by the way, especially now that Heimerdinger is irrelevant. Just don't play Jhin support. I did that video on that. If you really want to check that out earlier in the week, it's just terrible. Going into tier 2, we've got Nami and Soraka moved down. So back over to the patch notes. Grievous. Okay, did I spell that wrong? Oblivion Orb. Okay, Oblivion Orb. So Oblivion Orb got changed for enchanters. So Oblivion Orb costs 800 gold. They're reducing the AP on it slightly, but increasing the Grievous swings from 25 to 40%. It's just huge. They're also changing Chemtech. So they're reducing the ability power on it by 20, which is quite a lot, and haste by 5. But you're getting increased healing and shielding. So that's kind of cool in a way. Like if your champion relies a lot on healing and shielding, you're getting a slight boost there, but at the sacrifice of quite a lot of AP. So this kind of affects Nami quite a bit. Nami's healing on her W wasn't fantastic anyway, and healing and shielding wasn't a priority. And then she's losing... I haven't even touched on the actual Nami direct changes. So Nami... sorry for we'll summarize it all in a second. But Nami's W is getting nerfed. The damage is going down. AP scaling is going up slightly. But if they're taking away from AP from Chemtech, so that means that she won't be able to quite get to the same point as before in terms of how much damage her W does. And also AP ratio, it isn't mentioned here. Because Nami's now, if you go Chemtech, Nami's gonna have less AP overall, which means additional bounces will do less damage and less healing, because the more AP you've got, increases that percent on the bounces. So if you don't know, I can't remember what the cutoff is. I think it's 200 AP, where it's like, so before you got 200 AP, I think it's 200. Each bounce that you do, so you say you heal for the initial target for 100, then you do the damage and then you heal. The damage is lower on the first enemy target you hit, and then the second person that you're healing will probably get healed for like 80 instead of like 100 because of the fall off per bounce. But once you hit 200, there is no fall off, and then if you hit more than 200, then you actually heal that second target more than what your primary target was. So in case you weren't aware of that, so her having less AP from Chemtech from that path also affects her additional bounces as well. So that affects, you know, it doesn't matter that they up this AP ratio if they're also nerfing the amount of AP on her other items. So yes, the healing and shielding is being increased on that, but overall it's still a nerf Nami. So you could still go Oblivion Orb if you wanted to, just to grab the 40% Grievous Wounds if your team really needs it. And then you might actually just be opting into like an AP item. I know it's been such a meme recently. But you could go into a more AP Nami now to avoid losing the amount of AP that you should have been getting otherwise from Chemtech. So it's like 2 nerfs with Nami this patch. We'll keep an eye on it. Her win rate will go down. Particularly if you go like the Chemtech path and complete this build. If you just go Oblivion Orb and don't complete Chemtech, you will save 1,500 gold, which you then can invest in like a Rabadon's Death Cap. Can't believe I'm recommending that. But yeah, you can see the kind of point that I'm making. Like, it will be worth going more into AP items. Just don't buy a Riley's Crystal Scepter, because your E will slow more than the Riley's, and then your Riley's won't get any slow benefit because it only uses the highest percentage slow. A little bit long-winded and bouncing back and forth, but I hope you can see basically TLDR, Nami getting nerfed, AP ratios on items on that she would use are getting nerfed. This does affect champions like, you know, Soraka and Sona, but at least Soraka and Sona don't care quite as much about AP ratios compared to Nami. And also, like, you know, healing and shielding, like on Sona for example, still this is really good. Like healing and shielding 8%. Yes, more enemies are likely to have the Oblivion Orb, but Sona was building Chemtech anyway, and it's a really good item on her because you can give Chemtech to all 5 targets. And shield mitigation isn't really much of a thing still. There are like items for it, but no one's picking them up. So Sona's basically getting 8% extra shielding on her W, which is probably the most important thing, really, honestly. So it's not like a Sona buff, but it's like indirect, like, you know, it stabilizes her in order to her still actually be pretty good still, going into the 13.1b patch. Anything else I need to mention here? Not really. So yeah, Soraka does move down as well. she's not as hit this patch, but I think people will be picking up a lot of Grievous Wounds because also Executioner's Calling. I don't think many people are going to be picking this item up. Will now apply 40% Grievous Wounds, but the big one is Bramble Vest is now straight up just applying 40%. Also, the same with Thormail now. But I will say this: so the Grievous Wounds on Thormail used to be applied if someone hit you. I can't remember. I think it's 25% Grievous Wounds if they hit you. But if you did crowd control, it was 40%, right? So if you did crowd control with a Thormail equipped, you would apply 40% Grievous Wounds to the enemy target. That's no longer a thing. The target has to hit you. So in some cases where people shouldn't be hitting the tank anyway, they won't have the Grievous Wound buff. So like an AD carry, for example, generally, well, in most cases, probably won't be hitting the tank if they can avoid doing so. So they will avoid taking the Grievous Wounds debuff, which means they should still be able to be healed up to full, unless someone else is running like Oblivion Orb and stuff as well. So Thormail is a little bit of like is a buff and enough. It's kind of weird because you can't force people to have the Grievous Wounds now by crowd controlling them. It's like they have to hit you in order for that to apply. So Bramble Vest is kind of like Thormail overall. I think Bramble Vest is the same. Bramble Vest obviously straight up buff. Thormail kind of got nerfed a little bit, which is kind of weird. I don't think many people are going to be picking up Executioners, so the only people you kind of need to be worrying about are like people that are picking up Morellonomicon. Like Morellonomicon's actually not a bad item now. You will potentially want to consider picking this item up on Zyron Brand, which are still tier 1, which we'll go through in a second. Because not only are you doing like the 40% Grievous Wounds when you're doing the Oblivion Orb, but you're actually getting the adding magic penetration onto Morello, which is huge. Because if you go like Sock Shoes, and then if you go into like Morello, like straight away against like healing targets, you're already getting like close to if they haven't got magic resistance, you're going to be doing like almost true damage to them, which is kind of insane quite early on. So you could, in theory, if you really wanted to, and they had a lot of healing that you're worried about, I think it would be a legit viable strat if you wanted to go from Sock Shoes into Morellonomicon into then like Leandries or something, because Morellonomicon isn't that expensive, if I'm correct, which I'm going to check. I think it's 2,500. Yes, 2,500. So it's a very, very, very cheap item, and totally support viable to go into first item, an extra 10 magic penetration. Yeah, I think that's fine. That would be, you know, a fine build to do. So going into tier 1, we've got a new support champion that I've been testing out, Zac. Zac's been doing pretty well. The only nerf Zac is getting this patch is that Demonic Embrace is going down on the melee damage by 0.2%, but for most of my testing of Zac, getting Demonic Embrace is like super late anyway, and it wasn't at all a major part or even a minor part of the success of the champion. So build is generally got your support item, you buy cooldown reduction boots, you go Radiant Virtue, and then you go Demonic Embrace. Because Radiant Virtue is quite expensive, it's like 3,000 gold. Getting to get a Demonic Embrace is quite expensive, and it would mean that the game would have to go on some time. So it wasn't really that much of a factor anyway. But Zac is doing very, very well right now. Highly recommend him if you want something to play off meta. Sona's still doing tier 1, as you know, we've gone through the changes. Janna basically untouched, essentially, with the patch, and you know, she does shielding and healing. So Chemtech once again pretty good on her too. Amumi is still doing very, very strong as a tank, And then Zyra and Brand are definitely tier 1. Like hands down tier 1 for a tier list that's designated for, designed for, unranked to plat. Not only these two champions are really, really good at carrying, but these champions have also got the Morello buffs, so they're going to be doing anti-heal, and also Demonic Embrace, if you want to go down that route, for ranged targets, got a 0.2% damage buff, from I think went 0.8 per tick to 1%. We can just double check that. Demonic. So yeah, it went from 1.8% for melee, 0.8% for ranged, to 1.6 for melee, and then 1%. So you had a 0.2% buff, which is quite good, because you kind of weren't really doing Demonic Embrace much, or at least I wasn't. Like on Brand, for example, I would be going Liandry's into Demonic Embrace. Honestly, my build now on something like Brand or Zyra could be, as I mentioned earlier, like Sock Shoes into Morello, into Liandry's, and then if the game for some reason like lasted a really long time, it could be Rylai's or Demonic Embrace, depending on what I needed. But unfortunately, like both Rylai's and Demonic have the exact same build path, apart from the fact that like Demonic costs a little bit more gold in terms of the actual recipe at the end. You probably still will be leaning more towards Rylai's, honestly, just because it's cheaper rather than going Demonic, unless like the enemy team had like 3 or 4 tanks, but then you would probably want to prioritize Void Staff earlier over the Demonic Embrace. Demonic Embrace is still like in a little bit of a iffy situation for Zyra and Brand, but in some very kind of like niche situations where you could go like Void Staff, Liandry's, Demonic Embrace, if you wanted pure anti-tank stuff, that could be like a viable thing to do. But as I said before, like that's quite an expensive build, and you could only do that if you're like 6 kills coming out of laning phase. So do be careful about that. Try not to fall too much into the Demonic Embrace change. But the biggest one for these two champions in particular is the Morello and Grievous rune changes, because these champions, Zyra and Brand, apply it super easily, especially Brand. And even if you're just rocking the Oblivion Orb, that's fine too for the anti-heal. I mean, they're going to be basically doing perma 40% anti-heal to 4+ people in every team fight. So yeah, Oblivion Orb, definitely one of the kind of standout items for supports going into the 13.1b patch. Hope that kind of helps you out. Sorry I had to kind of slow down the tier list a little bit. As I said, my throat, it's not doing too great. So it's good to get these videos out when I can, before I get any worse. Also, in other news, we've started the Unranked to Diamond series for Season 13. First game's a Brand game, not on this patch, but we probably will do some more AP testing on with the Morello changes and stuff like that. I'm planning on those being daily videos. The first episode went live today. I'll put a link to the playlist of that series underneath the YouTube video. They're all going to be, it's planned at the moment that they're all going to be YouTube exclusive, so I won't be doing any of it on stream. So if you do want to catch me doing some Unranked to Diamond stuff, it will be on the YouTube channel. And as I said, hoping for daily videos, so keep an eye out tomorrow for another video for episode number 2. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you do want to catch that kind of educational, support only climb on EU West. All the best, berries. I hope this patch does okay for you. Hope the tier list helps, and we'll hopefully follow up properly again with a 13.2 or a 13.3 tier list, depending on what Riot wants to do. I don't know if they're just going to skip a number because of the issues that they've been having. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes straight from 13.1b to 13.3. We'll have to wait and see in terms of what they do. But I'll always be doing one of these tier lists the day before the patch comes out. So all the best, berries. Take care, and I hope you enjoy the Unranked Diamond series. Bye.